Have we caught our breath yet? We're back, baby. Progressive American Flat Track. The season kicked off down there in Daytona Beach, and man, we love opening day. We love that first race of the season. You know, everybody in January, we're all stoked for Anaheim 1 for Supercross. MotoGP's back. We're amped up for that. You know, there's so much excitement around a brand new season getting underway. You know, everybody's got a clean slate. And with Daytona, like you kind of know what to expect, but then there's the unknowns of it being a short track. And you know what's nice is that we get the double header, so it's twice as nice. We get the 2 races in the weekend, and we're off and running. This is going to be a great year, and we're off to a good start. We've seen 2 different winners in each class to start the season, so nobody getting the sweep this week or this year. And yeah, let's dive into this, man. We got a lot to unpack. There's going to be a lot to talk about. Probably going to be one of our longer videos, so just strap on in, and we'll get this thing underway. I wanna start the video by doing a quick little glance back at the Steve Nace Amateur Vintage Bike Week and kind of highlight some of the riders who had some standout performances there. And Steve has done a really good job of really kind of keeping that Florida Flat Track thing alive as much as he can. You know, the Florida Flat Track series used to be so cool. We used to have all these races, whether it be Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Savannah, Volusia, East Bay down in Tampa, Putnam County Raceway, which is now just add dirt. We had all these different races. Some of them were Mars races, some of them were dirt races, and it was a lot of racing going on in Florida during Bike Week just to build anticipation up for that Daytona short track. And unfortunately, like, that's gone by the wayside. I mean, you know, economics of promoting and then trying to secure these tracks and hoping you get the rider turnout and insurance and everything. Like, it's tough to promote races, and it's a bummer that we don't have more of it, because it was something that we always looked forward to as a family going down to Florida. We would choose to go to these hot shoe or these all-star races as opposed to the national. In fact, the first time I ever went to the Daytona Short Track National was last year. We would go to these all-star races or these hot shoe races and see a lot of the riders who were coming up in the sport. It's where, you know, I got to see guys like John Nickens race for the first time, Jake Johnson, Jared Mees. We got to see Dallas Daniels and Trent Lowe compete on 85cc bikes in Savannah. We got to watch Dalton Gauthier come up. We got to see Cody Kopp come up. We got to see all these riders really make a name for themselves and get kind of a feel for who the top riders were nationally, not just in the Southeast area where we could go to racing. So I appreciate Steve and Kelly and them for keeping that amateur series going. And hopefully next year we can get the all-star stuff back, because it'd be cool to see more pros get to tune up before Daytona. But just real quick, just want to give a quick gloss over of some of the guys who had, some of the kids and riders who had success during that amateur program. Again, 3 days of racing. I believe the second day at Satsuma got washed out, or main events got washed out. And Satsuma, just at Dirt Motorsports, is the old Putnam County, where my dad got to go there a couple of times. I've never personally been there. But the amateur vintage series, props to Cruz Texter, picked up a couple of titles on the week, 3 in the 50cc class. Your 65cc class, Wesley Settle picked up 2 titles, but he was challenged by Jackson Joyner and Jaden Nickens. In the 85cc class, Jackson Settle picked up a couple of titles. Jaden Nickens picked up 1 as well. And Jet Katarzi was really competitive in the 85s as well down there in Bike Week. And it was a little unfortunate seeing the rider count there at Just Add Dirt. It did seem to pick up whenever they went to Daytona on Tuesday for the short track, which was a good sign. I know weather didn't look great that opening weekend down there in Satsuma, Florida. So, and as we saw, the second day we didn't get main events in, but hopefully we get to see more of the youth riders in the future. If Steve's able to keep these events going, it'd be good to see a lot of depth. I don't know if we'll get the turnout that you get with an event like Winter Throwdown, but in the past we've gotten to see, and even not that long ago, we got to see an 85cc class that featured Adam Costin, Walker Porter, Braxton Reagan, just to name a few. And it was really cool to see those riders all battle it out there at Volusia and see them, you know, really kind of start to progress on their journey through flat track racing. So hopefully we get to see a little more youth in these classes in the future. Speaking of Adam Costin, Bud Manny picked up 250cc titles, but he was challenged and he was defeated by Cody Mishi a couple of times. And also at Daytona, Sam Drain was able to show up and take home a win there. Good to see Sam able to compete on a couple of races during that day. And of course, I mean, what else can be said about Walker Porter, man? This kid just keeps on winning. He is so good on that 450, and having the Turner backing. He won every single class championship that he was entered in down there in Florida. Just dominating performance on that 450. Walker's definitely got to be one of those front runners for Horizon Award. And man, it's so fun to watch Walker Porter race and how good he is and how capable he is to mix it up with some of the top riders at the professional level. We got to see him back at Masters Motorplex take a win and beat Cody Kopp and Trent Lowe and Evan Renshaw. And these are AFT professionals who are racing there under the lights in Daytona. So, man, Walker's been so impressive ever since we got to start watching him race in 85s and on his way up. But man, when he hopped on this 450, it was like, wow. So I can't say enough about Walker. But some other riders who competed in the 450 class down there that had really solid results. We can't take anything away from them. Carson King was able to pick up a title in one of the 450 classes, and Skylar Sintel, James Arnaiz, and Jonathan Conaby had solid results all week. It was nice to see them putting some consistent rides together there in the 450 class and see some depth in that amateur program. And of course, it wasn't just the amateur riders down there. Steve also brings a multitude of vintage classes and a couple of riders who had some success down there. Dennis Goyer picked up 2 titles. Daryl Jakubowski picked up a couple of titles. Andy Morano on those Maroney's machines, he got himself a couple of titles. And then also a shout out to Dave Athanas, who won a championship in one of the deeper classes that we saw of the vintage class. A lot of times, unfortunately, some of these vintage classes, the rider count is pretty low in there. I mean, just not many guys have these machines anymore, so you'll see a lot of 2, 3, 4 rider races. But we got up around 10 for the class for Athanas, which I don't have that one in front of me. But you check out SteveNaceRacing.com. He's got all the results posted and the bike week points, so you can see how some of your favorite riders did and kind of follow their progression down there at Bike Week and see what they've got going on in the future. If you get a chance, definitely support Steve's races. He's done a lot to keep that Bike Week feel, that racing going on down there in Florida as we lead up to the Nationals, and really appreciative of everything he's done. A lot of our footage on our page is from All-Star or the amateur Bike Week racing from Florida. So definitely give that a shout or a check out and give Steve some praise for keeping that stuff going. Now, Wednesday night, it was test night. And we got to really get a feel for who was going to be those top guys coming into the short track, guys who could get their bikes dialed in and be really competitive down there. Followed the lap times on the live timing for test night and got some pretty surprising times out there. I was very impressed to see Sammy Halbert on that XR 750 be the fastest twins rider. I figured Sammy would be competitive down there, but man, he was super impressive on that XR 750, competing for wins. I didn't think Sammy was going to be up there competing for wins. Sorry, Sammy. I thought you were definitely a podium or top 5 contender, but Sammy was fast all weekend. And he led more laps than anybody across the 2 days in the twins class, leading half the race both nights. Just really good on that XR 750. And he set the tone early in the week on the test night, being the fastest twins rider out there. So great to see that XR 750 looking good with the Dodge brothers and have Harley Davidson back up front in the mix. Of course, that was in the twins class. And then Cody Kopp actually had the fastest lap in the singles class on test night. And Cody debuting with his Rick Ware team, adding that sponsorship about a week before Daytona gets started, which is great to see him get that backing. And Cody teamed up with Shayna Texter and Briar Bauman under Rick Ware Racing and that Parts Plus team. I think that's going to be really formidable. We already picked Cody to be our champion, and he didn't look like he's lost a step at all. He was looking fast down in Daytona all weekend long. So that was the test day. So that was just everybody getting dialed in. Then Thursday night, under the lights, round 1, day 1, incredibly excited. So much anticipation around this. I mean, we were starved for AFT racing for 6 months, and almost to the day 6 months. So the series gets to kick off down there in Daytona. We got a lot of things to be excited about. We got the rookies coming up in each class. We've got Mies chasing history. Briar switching up his program a little bit. How's he going to do with the Howerton KTM? The singles riders, a little bit of movement in that class as well. How's Tom Drain going to look? He struggled on short tracks last year, but it was also as he was first getting into the series. So what was his program going to look like? Chase Sadoff's new program. So many different questions, so many things to be excited about. There's only a couple things that make me happier than a Taylor Swift album release, and it's an AFT event. So I was super excited for Thursday night and was dialed in on Flo Sports right when practice started. We're going to start with the twins class. So Thursday, first practice session that goes out there is the Super Twins class. And even though we talk about practice, that first session, we had 5 different brands in the top 5. You look at Daniels was the quick time, then Sammy Halbert, Brandon Robinson, Dan Bromley, and Briar Bauman. Yamaha, Harley Davidson, Indian, Honda, KTM. 5 brands across the top 5. And we would see a lot of brand diversity like up in the mix throughout this series while they were in Daytona. I thought these short tracks would give those brands an opportunity to really shine and not just be an Indian and Yamaha dominant race down there. These short tracks and TTs do kind of open that up. And of course, as we'll see, and as you guys already know from watching or seeing results, that the big players were the ones to beat in the end. But it was cool to see such a variety of brands putting in good times, and just to have that out there, have that diversity in the Twins class. Like, hopefully this can be a building block to where we can start seeing more involvement in the future. It's, again, maybe it's a pipe dream. Great podcast, check it out. But yeah, we're just we're excited to see this influx of manufacturers. I think we had Kawasaki's Royal Enfield, the KTM Harley, Honda, Indian, Yamaha. I feel like I'm missing one, and it's probably glaring at me right in the face. But so many different manufacturers competing in the Super Twins class right there. Moving on, as we go through practice and qualifying, again, Sammy Halbert and the Dodge Brothers Harley Davidson, fast, consistently fast, topped Twins practice 2 and Q1. Dallas Daniels was fastest in Q2, but it would be Sammy Halbert who was going to be quick time on the night. Just some notes I saw from practice is that we put 10 bikes out there, and it looks like it was really difficult to put a fast lap together. You get so bunched up, and a lot of guys were really having to race each other or try to knife through the pack to get that space and have enough room to really lay down a good lap. On some of these bigger tracks, it's not normally as difficult to space out, get your own room, and to try to lay down those big laps. But there at Daytona, there's a lot of packs in both classes, and tough to lay down a quick time. Obviously the best of the best were able to get a little bit of space, get out front and lay down some heaters. But one of the things I noticed on this opening night, Jared Mees, 10th overall, just didn't seem to, and this is not his favorite track. It's documented. He's never won the Daytona short track. So Jared struggled down there and just didn't seem to have the speed in qualifying. And then you compare that and you look at that Halbert on his Harley and how settled he looked and how fast he looked, and Briar and Dallas and how good they were looking in practice and qualifying and searching for lines and finding speed. I was just surprised to see Jared that far down. I figured maybe 5 to 8, somewhere in there, but to see him back in 10th and have to start second row in his heat race both nights was really surprising. But one rider who also a new team for him this year, but had a really strong showing there in Daytona, as you see me toss paper aside here, Brandon Price. Props to Price, man. He came out, qualified 5th on opening night, and he would have a really sporty week down there in Daytona. Brandon Price coming out there on those Yamahas. Memphis Shades backing there too. And Brandon was somebody I did not predict to be up in the hunt for the wins, but he was really competitive all weekend and definitely stood out in every time he hit the racetrack. As we look into the heat races on the opening night, turn 1 and 2, going into 1 and 2, you had that crater down the front straightaway, and also a really rough spot by the finish line too, just super rough going into the corners. At times, Dallas and Briar in practice would try to go above it and arc their entry a little bit more, but that hole was wreaking havoc. And 1 and 2 just became, it was taking victims all weekend long. A lot of carnage down there in 1 and 2. Handful of riders unfortunately picked up injuries: Cody Johncox, Evan Kelleher, Brandon Newman. Hope you guys all heal up and can get back to the track. Real bummer to see that. We'll get into Newman a little bit and Kelleher as well. Unfortunately, Cody Johncox got hurt on that first night, didn't come back for the second night. But Heat 1, Briar Bauman gets claimed by turns 1 and 2 after having a front row start, looking like he was going to be in the mix for wins down there, having a lot of hype around his program. Unfortunately, bad luck going into 1 and 2, goes down and he had to come from the back row to get back into the mix, and he was able to do that, and he wasn't the only one who did that. We got to see a lot of charges from the back, and Briar was making that top line work, and it looked at times like we might see a high line there in Daytona. We might get to see guys try to hug the bottom. That track seems to lend itself to sort of a diamond line, or you arc your corner, try to get up the inside off of 2, but go wider into 1. And same thing with 3 and 4. Briar was able to kind of roll up in that looser dirt and get around everybody and get back into 3rd. It's good to see him have that charge. But Heat 1, talked about them looking impressive all day. Sammy Halber gets the win. Brandon Price gets second. They're heading on to that Too Fast, Too Tasty challenge, that mission dash, and off to chase that $5,000 check. Heat Race 2, I guess Johnny Lewis doesn't still hold animosity to Jared Mees for 2012 because Johnny could have dirtied him up a little bit in going into 3 and 4 during this heat race, but Johnny laid it down as to not wipe him out. The Royal Enfield having to go to the LCQ. We saw a lot of great racing in this heat race. We saw Brandon Robinson and Dallas Daniels duke it out up front, fighting for the win in that heat race, and also Jared, Trevor Bruner, and Davis Fisher were in a dogfight for third place in this heat race, just swapping all over the track. Really fun to watch that battle, and Dallas and Brandon as well racing for first. It was such a fun heat race to watch. Some great racing down there in Daytona, especially during some of these qualifiers. I mean, these guys were elbows up and fighting. They use the term fist fight in a phone booth a lot in short track racing, whether it be cars or bikes, and that's what this was. There was I don't know if there was any actual fist fights in the pits, but there was a lot of aggression out on the track. JL10 unfortunately going down in his heat race. He would come back in the LCQ. He'd pick up the win in the Twins LCQ, and also Wyatt Vaughn getting his first Super Twin star. Really good to see some new names get up there and get into Twins main event. So props to him. Max Whale unfortunately didn't start the LCQ on night 1. It's a little bit of a bummer there. I think he was hoping to use a provisional but wasn't able to. So unfortunately, Max's rookie debut not going to how he would have hoped. Max would get back into it on night 2. Yeah, that was really unfortunate to see. And then another thing I noticed during the LCQ is Scotty's nickname for Declan Bender, calling him Big D. Declan, I love you, man. I'm not going to call you Big D. I just don't know that I can do that. But if that's going to be the nickname for you out on the road, just let them know. Let them know who Big D is, I guess. But Declan, able to put it in the main event down there in Daytona. Proud of him to get that Grumpy Old Men Racing Indian in the show. Declan struggled with the single at Daytona last year. So it's good to see him progressing, and like he said, he wants to learn a lot this year, and I think he will. And it's good to see him getting that bike in the show. With the Twins dash, Brandon Price continues to be impressive. Got the whole shot. Was looking really sporty, but the Harley was still on point. And Sammy Halbert, he's got the perfect night going. Quick time, heat race win. He wins the dash. Just a phenomenal night going for those Dodge Brothers. That Dodge Brothers team with Sammy aboard the Harley, and he was looking so strong. And that brings us to night 1, Twins main event, and storylines aplenty. This is where Sammy's night went from being great to quite odd, I would say. Sammy gets out front early, looking good, looking really smooth and settled, putting together a really strong performance while everybody else dices it up behind him. Price, Bauman, Robinson, Daniels, just a dogfight back there for second on back, and Dallas was able to kind of get through all that and start to chase down Sammy. And as he was closing in on Halbert, unfortunately, you see Sammy's bike start to smoke, and Dallas is able to get around him, and then Sammy's getting black flagged. But he doesn't realize he's being black flagged because there's no board with his number, so a lot of confusion there. And Sammy's still out there racing. He's still in the pack. At the time, he was running second, and you got Brandon Price comes up behind him in turn 3 at one point and threw a hand up, looked pretty irritated. I think Dallas in the interview afterwards said that he felt he was getting blasted with coolant, and then Sammy posted a YouTube video explaining kind of the whole situation. A little bit of oil was leaking out, and then he was getting black flagged, and then suddenly he wasn't being black flagged. He just kept going. Again, they never made it clear, so we thought Sammy was going to get DQ'd on night 1, but he kept racing, and then the decision got reversed. So he ended up not getting DQ'd, and Sammy would end up settling for 5th behind Davis Fisher. And then our podium, which, as we said, Dallas Daniels took the lead halfway through and kept his winning streak going there at Daytona. 3 straight wins for Dallas after Thursday night's program, and just looked really strong. He said in his post-race interview that he was kind of mad at himself for looking back so much, but toward the end of that race, he put down some really solid laps and just kind of checked out on the field. Ended up winning by over 3 seconds with Brandon Price coming home second. Yamaha 1-2, and then Brandon Robinson puts the Indian up there in third, that last spot on the box. When you go back through the running order here, Mees ends up finishing 6th. Cam Smith fell to or held on for for 9th, Dan Bromley 10th, Trevor Bruner 11th, and Breyer faded. It was really unfortunate to see Breyer fade there, looking so strong early on, then had adversity, bounced back, was in the mix early on, but just didn't have a great main event. I don't know if something happened to his machine or if he was fighting. Sammy had mentioned that he lost his brakes. I know Breyer had that happen to him first night last year. Maybe that was an issue. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of speculation. I don't have the answer. All right, Friday night, Twins class. Is Dallas Daniels going to be able to sweep the weekend again? Is he going to get that fourth win, or are we going to see somebody else jump on top of the box there in Daytona? And the day started for him. He was looking good. Dallas topped the first 2 practice sessions, and he was looking like he might be the guy to beat. But Breyer Bauman would end up topping qualifying 1 and end up being the fast lap of the afternoon, getting quick time, the Parts Plus Pole Award. From his lap in qualifying session 1. Sammy Halbert topped qualifying session 2, but his lap not quite enough to knock Breyer off that top spot. A lot of the same players up there in the top 5 in qualifying. You saw Dallas, Davis Fisher, Breyer, Sammy Halbert, Brandon Robinson. Those guys kind of the ones that really put on a good performance Thursday night. Were right back at the top of the charts on Friday. Brandon Price had his struggles. He was down the charts quite a bit during practice and qualifying. Was finally able to get back up into 7th fastest in qualifying 2, but he would not be able to get a front row starting spot just based on times from Q1. So Price was on row 2 for his heat race, and Jared Mees, very pedestrian qualifying times, pretty far off the pace there. Ended up back in 13th overall, so he would have to start his heat race on the 2nd row. We see in Supercross guys like Cooper Webb who don't always qualify well, but then come out when the lights are on in the night show. And I don't know how many times we got to say it, but yeah, Daytona's not Jared's cup of tea. But with the Twins class, just get into the show and get through practice and qualifying. The extra money for quick time is nice, but the racing's where it counts. And Jared and Brandon Price would be on the 2nd row for their heat race. And as we'll talk about, they were able to capitalize and definitely move forward in heat racing. A couple scary moments in qualifying. Colby Carlisle, big wheel stand coming off of 4, almost into the wall. And then Dan Bromley coming off of turn 4 in another session. Did end up smacking the wall on the Honda. It comes up quick. When you get that power to the ground and the bike starts drifting out to the wall, it can get really, really sketchy. A lot of guys having that front wheel come up off the corners of turn 2 and off of turn 4 all weekend long, provided some hold on tight moments. So moving into heat races, these heat races were crazy. A lot of action in the opening laps. A lot of guys getting knocked around, position shuffling all over the place. We talked about Price and Mees making the most of a 2nd row starting spot. Well, in heat 1, they end up going from row 2 to 2nd and 3rd. Brandon ends up 2nd, Mees up into 3rd. Breyer Bauman from the pole gets shuffled backwards on an opening lap. Carlisle's riding the rodeo down into 3 and 4. Thought he was going to end up going into the wall. Very sketchy moment for him on the opening lap of that. And after all that sort of settled in, guys kind of were able to get into their positions and run a smoother race. Breyer ended up settling in there behind Mees. Meanwhile, behind all that, Brandon Robinson was able to get out front and keep a smooth race going. He would take the win in heat 1 over Brandon Price going to the dash. Mees 3rd, so he gets himself a 2nd row start for the main event, which was looking like a potentially like that wasn't going to happen after his qualifying efforts, but he put it together in the heat race. So just smart riding, staying out of trouble, and putting that number 1 bike into 3rd spot in the heat race for that 2nd row main event start. Moving into heat 2, again, just another dogfight. Guys shuffling all over the place. Jared Vanderkooi was in 2nd at one point behind Dallas Daniels and runs a little bit wide. Sammy Halbert gets by him and going into 3 and 4 on, I believe, lap 2, and then going into turns 1 and 2. Johnny Lewis hits a hole, gets up into him, and then Vanderkooi goes from 2nd to about 9th in the span of 26, 27 seconds. During all that, Cam Smith ends up going from 6th to 3rd to 5th, and just the scoreboard was all over the place. Guys shuffling positions. And with all that movement, we figured somebody was about to go down, and sure enough, Johnny Lewis hits a hole, drifts up the track, maybe a little bit of contact into Ben Lau. Ben Lau goes down, and the red flag comes out. So we restart the heat race, and this is where Sammy Halbert was able to capitalize and get by Dallas Daniels and put his Harley out front. And Sammy, again, just looking really good all weekend long, just looked really settled in the bike. He didn't seem to be fighting it a lot, very smooth through the corners. Gets ahead of Dallas, ends up winning the 2nd heat race. and Dallas Daniels will join him in the Mission Too Fast, Too Tasty Challenge. Heat 2, really cool. We talked about all the brands involved. Every single rider that transferred was on a different brand of motorcycle. So Sammy on the Harley, Dallas on the Yamaha, Johnny Lewis on the Royal Enfield, Cam Smith on a KTM, Bromley on the Honda, and then Jared Vanderkooi gets back into 6 to put it in the show on that Indian. 6 different brands making it into the show out of that heat race. As we go into the LCQ, we noticed Bronson Bauman not out there to start. Really, really bummed about his struggles on the weekend. Hopefully Bronson and that team can turn it around and get some better results as the year goes on. Hated to see them having so much difficulty down there in Daytona and not getting to see a whole lot of them during the broadcast or in the show. So definitely best wishes to them. Hopefully they can turn that around. In this LCQ, Colby Carlisle puts it together, gets the win. Max Whale, after not being able to start the LCQ on Thursday night, does get to compete in the one on Friday, puts that XG in the show. So Max will get his first Super Twin start. And then in the dash, same riders, both classes, the same riders in the dash each night. With singles class, you saw Drain, Lowe, Kopp, and Gautier in the twins. Robinson, Price, Halbert, and Daniels in the dash each night. This dash was really sporty. A lot of things going on. Brandon Price very aggressive. We knew it was a matter of time before somebody was going to go down, and Brandon Robinson saved it for the last lap. He would go down while running in second behind Sammy Halbert, who takes home another Too Fast, Too Tasty challenge. Sammy getting 10 G's on the weekend with the dash for cash. Really cool shot at the end of the night at the end of the dash. You've got Sammy going down the front straightaway with the crowd behind him. Nice crowd there at Daytona. People on their feet cheering Sammy and that Harley Davidson on. Just a really cool shot on the broadcast to see those people excited for that race and cheering on the Slammer after that dash win. So that brings us into the main event. How's the night gonna conclude? And as we get off and running, Sammy Halbert to the front. A lot of action going on behind him. We got Daniels, Price going at it. Mees up in the mix. Bauman, Robinson, so many guys out there battling and jockeying for position there, fighting for ground to try to get into second and see if they can chase down Sammy Halbert. I noticed Dallas and Breyer running just kind of the edge of the racing groove right up there against the loose stuff, getting a high line working for a little while. And also very early in the race, probably before about halfway, Brandon Price was wiping his shield and supposed to rip and tear offs. I don't know if he lost tear offs or if he preferred that method before the race. But yeah, he was coming down the front straightaway and you see him actually wipe his visor as opposed to rip a tear off, maybe grab too much. But Price would really start to fade after about halfway. So I'm sure that had to affect him. What was interesting to see about the battling that was going on for second and all that jockeying for positions, they weren't really losing a whole lot of ground on Sammy. They were still keeping it really close to him. He wasn't able to gap him like you often see when guys start racing for position. Sammy wasn't really able to pull away, and that proved to be very advantageous for Brandon Robinson, who finally was able to get into second place and start to chase down Sammy, get right up on his rear wheel. Sammy had a really tight line protecting coming out of turns 3 and 4, but seemed to kind of fade out as they were coming into 1 and 2 and leave the door open. Robinson, again, running a different line, able to kind of get tighter off of turn 2 and was eventually able to get up under Sammy going into 3 and 4. Sammy went for a little bit of a wild ride going into 3 and 4 after that pass, getting up in that loose stuff where that hole in 3 and 4 was forming, and had to fall back to second. And then from there, Brandon Robinson, smooth sailing out front. Sammy kept him close right there around 5/6 of a second for most of it, but toward the end of the race, Brandon was able to kind of check out and bring home the win. Behind those two, though, a battle was raging between Dallas Daniels and Breyer Bauman. They were getting after it for that last podium spot. And as you watch the broadcast, you'll see that number 1 just creeping in. I'm sure he was hoping that was going to get a little more aggressive so that Mees could maybe sneak up onto that last podium spot with Dallas and Breyer duking it out. They would end up settling in with Breyer taking home third, or Dallas taking home third, Breyer fourth, Jared in fifth on the night. So big rebound for Breyer after the 8th place on night 1, getting back to 4th. Kind of a letdown for Dallas probably. Again, he won 3 straight, had to settle for a podium on this night, but definitely big bounce backs for Sammy and Brandon Robinson as well. Sammy with the weird Thursday night, and then Brandon again getting back on top of the box. He talked in the post-race interview about how frustrated he was not getting any wins last year, and And now here we are, opening weekend. He's already gotten on top of the box. We thought Brandon was going to get a win. We picked Dallas and Brandon to win, just picked them on the wrong night. So those two guys coming out of Daytona with the win. Let's take a look at those results real quick. Brandon Robinson with the win, Halbert, Daniels, Bauman, Mies. We talked about Davis Fisher having not the greatest second night out there on the track, but solid performance for him. And then we mentioned Brandon Price starting to fade back as the race went on there on that second night. Trevor Bruner, our top rookie on the evening. And now after that, let's take a look at the points, and we have a tie leaving Daytona. We got Brandon Robinson and Dallas Daniels tied atop the standings. Sammy Halbert, are you sure you don't want to run Sonoya? You're right there in the title hunt, man. Brandon Price in fourth. Davis Fisher rounds out the top five. You've got in sixth, Mies, Bauman seventh, Vanderkooi eighth, Trevor Bruner currently the top rookie in ninth, and Cam Smith. Great weekend for Cam. He's leaving Daytona 10th in points. Hoping to see a lot of good results out of Cam this year on that KTM. He looked really good down there in Daytona. Was up there fighting with Mies in that second main event, or that main event on Friday night for a fifth, sixth, and started to trail back just a touch there when Jerry was able to pull away. But having some good battles with those guys. Good to see Cam up there in the mix and inside the top 10. So yeah, we move on to Sonoya next, and I think this opening's couple of rounds, obviously Daytona is not normally an indicator of who's going to win the championship. More often than not, the champion doesn't win Daytona than they do. As we've seen, Jared has trailed leaving Daytona, the short track, on 4 occasions and still won the championship. Scotty Parker, 9-time champion, only won Daytona 1 time. So he's pretty much always trailing after Daytona. So we're kind of getting to the meat of the season. We'll go to these car tracks, but the season's kind of broken up into these sections where this part probably favors your Dallas, Brandon, Breyer. And then the next, as we head to these car tracks, is going to favor Mies a little bit more. Then we'll go back to a couple of short tracks and then back to the car tracks and the miles. So going to probably see a bit of an accordion effect here on the points. I expect Mies to definitely bounce back, be back on the box. We predicted him to go 6-5 at Daytona. We got that one right. I'm sure people would probably love for us to predict him to finish off the box more often, but Jared Mies is going to win some races this year, and he's going to get right back up there into this title fight and definitely push them here as we go into Sonoya, where he won last year, and Texas, where he's had so much success. Wouldn't be surprised to see Mies right there, only single digits back in the championship hunt as we make that trek out west. And now we're going to talk about the singles from the opening night. This class has going to have a lot of drama this year. There's so many good riders in this, and the racing was chaotic to say the least. Starting the day, there was one constant throughout practice, and it was Chase Sadoff at the top of every sheet. Chase put down a really good time on test night and then didn't come out for the last couple sessions, so Cody was able to get the better of him later on. Cody, strong, right up there in the top 2 or most of these sessions. He put it together a really good qualifying time to get pole in one of his heat races, but Chase was dominant in qualifying on night 1. Got that Parts Plus Pole award. And Chase, AFT put up an interesting picture with Chase walking in the pits, and he kind of had like a Spider-Man feel about him. Looked like your friendly neighborhood Peter Parker, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, walking around in the red suit with his helmet off and just smiling. And then he puts that all black helmet on and becomes Venom out there on the track. And I thought Chase was poised to put on a really good show. He always does. Chase is so much fun to watch. He's a little wild out there. Sometimes he'll give you some scares, and he'll hang the gas on. But Chase was on it during qualifying. Looked really, really good. Just some notes I noticed earlier in the day from qualifying is that in that first session, Cody Kopp and Tom Drain seemed to really be fighting their bikes a little bit. And then as it progressed, they really kind of settled in. Tom looked really, really sporty early on. I was very impressed with Tom, and I was, the questions about how would he do on these short tracks? Would he be able to contend with the leaders? He did, struggle at short tracks last year, but Tom was looking really settled, looking strong. Tyler Raggio and Justin Jones went at it in that first session. They were throwing some aggressive passes on each other, and these two would have really fun weekends to watch. I forget how good Justin Jones is at Daytona at times. He's podiumed there a lot, especially 2014 to 2016, consistently right up there fighting for the podium. Picked up a win in 15. Justin Jones runs well here, and he looked strong all weekend. Looked to be up there contending for podiums. Very, very good to see Justin out there. But man, he and Tyler just throwing some heaters at each other during practice. It's like, come on, guys, we got to lay down some fast laps. So now let's talk about the heat races. We just said a minute ago, or said a second ago, that Tom Drain was looking pretty good. And in this first heat, man, if he got the whole shot, and when Tom was able to get the whole shot and get out front in clean air, he was going to be a problem. And Tom was able to get the whole shot because unfortunately Chase Sadoff had a really bad start in this heat race. And unfortunately for Chase, it felt like that took the momentum away from his night. He was so strong in qualifying, looked really good, looked like he was going to be the class of the field, and just he almost crashed going into 1 and 2 in this first heat race on Thursday night, and just it really seemed to take the momentum away. He couldn't get back up there and fight for that dash spot. So Tom Drain ends up getting the win. Dalton Gautier comes home second in that heat race. Chase Sadoff is able to come home third there, so he would start on the second row for the main event. Just kind of a bummer how that heat race started for him, but again, Tom Drain out front, looking good, looking really strong, and definitely raising some eyebrows. If Tom can be competitive on these short tracks, Tom's going to be dangerous in this championship. Singles heat 2 on Thursday night was not pretty, to say the least. It actually ended up getting called early because of the carnage that ensued. Off the start, Evan Renshaw, Trent Lowe, Logan Eisenhart all go down. I believe there was another rider that got mixed up in that. I don't have it written down on my notes. I missed that one, but just that set the tone, unfortunately, for this heat race. So all three of those riders end up going to the third row, and then Trent, from the ground, he uses that outside line, passes a bunch of people, starts getting back up into a transfer spot, and then we unfortunately see another crash. This is where Brandon Newman would go down, and unfortunately his weekend would end during the heat race. So we hope Brandon's gonna be recovered. I believe a collarbone injury. He had to go to the hospital. So hopefully, Brandon, man, hopefully you get better and can race later this year. It's not a fun injury to have. This singles class, man, just so got really gnarly throughout the night. It's already a really cindy class, and on short tracks, again, elbows up, fighting for every inch you can get. Just a lot of chaos in this heat race. One person who didn't have to deal with any of it was Cody Kopp. He got out front and was kind of on cruise control. Was able to stay out of all the chaos that was going on behind him, and was able to be credited with the win after the crashing ended the race. It seemed like AFT had enough of their shit, and Cody gets the win, and Trent goes to the dash, comes from the ground to a dash spot, so he'd go to the Al Lamb Challenge and get a nice bounce back from how his night started. But 1 and 2 was not done with Trent, unfortunately for him. One thing that we forgot to mention from earlier heat race was Evan Kelleher almost launched over the bars in that second heat race. He was fighting for second place and hit that hole, and it looked like he was going to Superman into the fence. I don't know how he held on to it. That crater in 1 and 2 was no joke. And just 1 and 2 just was a place for destruction all weekend long, and just so much going on there. James Ott ends up going down in 1 and 2. It has to come from the back and puts together a charge in that LCQ, is able to get back up toward the front and get into the feature on his Husqvarna, that first impressions team. That LCQ on Thursday night was won by Evan Renshaw, not where he wants to be for sure. That first turn crash in his heat race put him up against the 8-ball, and well, he's able to get the win in the LCQ and get into that main event on the first night there in Daytona. And then it goes into our dash, and I'm looking at the dash. I'm looking at the guys lined up on the dash, and Tom's on the inside, and he just didn't look ready. He looked kind of lost on the line, and they got a really bad start. I'm sure he was paying attention, but he just kind of, I was looking at him like, I don't think this doesn't look good for Tom. And then he gets smoked off the line. That bad start would cost him. One person who wouldn't be upset by it was Cody Kopp, who would get out front and lead the whole way, picking up another Al Lamb Challenge. Cody keeping his solid night going, heat race win, trying to be one of those riders that gets 3 straight. He swept in 2023, and he's looking really, really strong on these KTMs this year and hoping to carry that momentum into the main event. Singles main event, here we go. First AFT singles feature of the year. And, well, we thought our pick was going to come true. We picked Brandon Robinson to win night 1 in the Twins. Dalton Gautier gets to win we picked Brandon Robinson to win night 1 in the Twins. Dallas Daniels gets the win in the Twins. We picked Dalton Gautier to win night 1 in the singles, and he gets out to the early lead and was looking really strong. And Dalton just seemed, again, like in all these interviews we talk about, he wants to have fun, wants to get back to having fun and enjoy being at the track. Like how he and Robbie Bobby were in 2019 when they were able to win that championship. They're not a top-funded team. There's definitely some hurdles for them to overcome if they're going to run this full series. But Dalton looked really, really strong on this opening night and was out competitive in his heat race, got out front in the main event, and was putting off really good laps. Cody Kopp gets into second. And then Trent Lowe's 1 and 2. Again, he gets a little wide, and Chase Sadoff coming off the exit of 2 just blasts him. I mean, Trent just disappears into a cloud of roost. I'm surprised that he didn't get blown out the exit of 2, because I was surprised he came out of that dirt cloud that Chase threw up at him coming off of 1 and 2. So once again, Trent Lowe in 1 and 2 is just not his friend. But Trent was going to show perseverance, and he was able to get back in the hunt and stay with Chase and with Tom, who would fall back from the KTMs. Dalton and Cody started to really drive away from the field in that first singles race. And about midway through, Cody was arcing 1 and 2 a little bit better than Dalton was, and he was able to find a little sliver of room about the apex of 1 and 2 and come up underneath Gautier to take the lead. And Cody would start clicking off some really good laps after that, start to pull away. And Cody Kopp would go on to win that opening night. Kopp with the win, 3 in a row. And in his post-race, he said that these bikes felt better than his factory bikes that he was on last couple years with the Red Bull team. And that's a scary proposition. If Cody's feeling better and he's already won 2 championships in dominating fashion, everybody look out. Cody's so much fun to watch. I could watch Cody and Dalton race each other and battle each other for hours. I mean, it's so fun to watch these two ride. And there at Daytona, they put on a clinic on night 1. Behind them, there was a little bit of drama. Tom Drain looked like he was poised for a podium on the opening night, but then we're watching from home. I wasn't at the track. I was watching the Flo broadcast, and coming across the line, you just see him tumble down the timing sheets. Trent Lowe's able to come into 3rd, Chase Sadoff 4th, and Justin Jones ends up 5th there. And we're like, what happened to Tom Drain? Well, come to find out, on the broadcast, they did mention that he went down on the last corner there. Apparently, a little bit of contact potentially with he and Chase Sadoff. I didn't see it, just what came over on the broadcast. So Tom ends up finishing 15th on the opening night, and that hurts. I know it's only the opening round, but a 15th place finish, as we've talked about in our preview shows, even finishing out of the top 5 is damaging to your points championship. And to finish 15th on that night, that's going to be a tough one to bounce back from in the points. But Tom's a resilient rider, and if you followed the weekend, you'll know he was looking for redemption after that. Let's go ahead and put the singles results up here. Let it kind of page through. You guys can see how everything went down on that night. Again, Justin Jones, strong performance, comes home 5th, looking good out there. Tyler Raggio, his practice nemesis, comes home 6th. Great run for Tyler all weekend. Tyler was one of the more fun riders to watch that whole day. Track was super rough in practice. He's wheeling through the holes coming down the front straightaway. Really impressed with Tyler Raggio's performance. Awesome job by him. And unfortunately, Evan Kelleher, who had such a strong heat race and was looking like he might be the top rookie on the night, he ends up with hurting his foot in the main event. I was not able to come back on Saturday. Had a DNF on Friday night. He's going to get that checked out. Hopefully it's nothing major and we can get Evan Kelleher back by Sonoya or later in the season. So unfortunate because he qualified 5th. He had that moment in his heat race, but was still able to transfer high up and be in the second row for the main event and looked really, really competitive out there. We talked about how hyped we are for Evan Renshaw and Braden Fanders to continue their rivalry into the professional ranks. And Kelleher being that 3rd rookie that could really mix it up. And he looked like he was going to be the top rookie on the night because Renshaw had his struggles as well in the heat race, going down in that same heat race that Kelleher was in. But unfortunately for Kelleher, that injury in the main event put him out. And then Renshaw, as you saw, probably not the result that he was wanting coming into Daytona, a track that he was really excited to run. But hey, let's get those rookie jitters out of the way. I still think Renshaw is going to be a contender for a win this year. On to Friday. Remember, I said Tom Drain was looking for redemption, and opening lap, he came out and dropped a 17.8. Nobody was touching 17s during this time, during the weekend. And Tom he pulled out, and the first thing I wrote before time even dropped, I said, oh boy, Tom's ripping. And he was looking for redemption all night. Tom was so fast in that opening practice session, but practice times don't count. Qualifying times do. And who was back on top? Chase Sadoff, once again, gets quick time in the singles class, although Tom Drain did top the second qualifying session. What we've noticed about the track in practice is that the front straightaway still, there was a real, grabby bump right there about the start-finish line. And also 3 and 4 was getting a little shaky. 1 and 2 didn't seem to be as treacherous on entry, but 3 and 4, you had that little bump just above the racing surface. Guys were bouncing through that. It was really upsetting the bikes. It also looked like, I don't know if it's how they shaped the track or maybe it's just from watching on TV and not being there, but 3 and 4 looked a lot more narrow than it has in the past. I don't know if anybody can attest to that. It just didn't seem like there was a whole lot of room for you to race. I mean, Daytona's already narrow enough as it is, and not a whole lot of room to run on it as it is. But 1 and 2 seem to be a little bit wider than 3 and 4. I could be totally wrong. It's just the optics of it. Going back to Chase that off, just so much fun to watch during practice. I mean, he had moments that I'm sure the heart rate just went through the roof at times, standing up the front wheel. But man, he's so much fun to watch. Chase is definitely Mr. Excitement. He's not quite Rusty Rogers level, but Chase is going to put on a show. Also, Tom Drain during qualifying, he and Chad Coase had quite a little battle there in Q1, which probably did hinder Tom's times. In Q1, he was only 9th fastest. That battle with Chad Coase and Evan Renshaw during qualifying for Tom on Friday night was kind of fun to watch. These guys, again, in practice, had a tough time spacing out at times, so there was a lot of racing going on during practice and qualifying, and that's not going to help you lay down a fast lap for sure. Like we said, Chase, back-to-back fast time awards on the night, so it sets him up in a good position once again on the pole for his heat race. And this heat race was stacked. We're looking at a front row that had Chase Sadoff, Cody Kopp, Dalton Gauthier. Logan Eisenhart had been really strong in the past at Daytona. Like, we've got a really good heat race brewing. Tyler Raggio's in it. He finished 6th on the opening night. And yeah, this was a stacked heat race. And Chase gets a bad start. Dalton and Cody are up front. Dalton fighting for the lead, gets it, and then Chase goes down. And unfortunately, it's so frustrating for him to have such a good night going once again, and these minor hiccups, and it impacts his chance at having that really good like starting spot in the dash and then going for the win. Chase has to be one of those riders who then goes to the back and has to fight his way forward, and well, he did just that. In 2 laps, he was already back into a transfer spot, and that's when we saw a crash in 3 and 4 with Tyler Raggio, and I believe Shayna Texter-Baumann got mixed up in that as well. So then we get another restart, and Chase was able to fight his way back to 3rd behind a just delicious battle. Like I told you, I could watch Cody Kopp and Dalton Gauthier race each other all day, and they gave us probably the most fun race of the night for me to watch as a fan. Just back and forth, slide, square it up, come under the other guy. I truly suggest that everybody go back and rewatch the singles heat race 1 from Friday night. Just a masterclass, clean racing, not getting super aggressive with anybody. Nobody's getting punted out of the way. Really respectful, good, clean racing. Awesome show by Dalton and Cody. Dalton ends up coming out on top in this instance, drag race to the line. Fantastic heat race. Dalton with the win, Cody 2nd. They're going on to the dash. And like we said, Chase is able to bounce back to 3rd and get on that 2nd row starting spot in the feature. The singles heat race number 2, a little less dramatic. The singles racing got a little less dangerous, I guess, at this point. Well, not less dangerous. I mean, of course, it's definitely dangerous out there, but less carnage in that class, it seemed, as this night went on. I don't know if there was a stern talking to in riders meeting or what. But anyway, singles heat 2, hole shot Tom is a problem. Tom Drain getting hole shots is not what you want to have happen, because if he's getting hole shots out here on short tracks and looking this good on something that was a struggle for him last year, we in for a problem, boys. Tom, hole shots, pretty easy. Fun battle with Evan Renshaw and James Ott back there. Just for 3rd throughout this race. They were going at it, slicing back and forth. Really fun to watch there. I think Justin Jones was the one who ended up capitalizing on that. Renshaw, a moment coming off a 4-1 lap, fell back to 5th. But was able to make a direct transfer to the main event this time. So progress for the rookie, no LCQ this time. And Drain goes on to take the win over Trent Lowe. Trent's back in another dash. Singles LCQ, I guess I wasn't entirely truthful when I said that the carnage was done, because Reese Podorf and Jared Lowe nearly wiped out the whole pack coming off of turn 4. How they didn't crash everybody, I'll never know. Podorf gets really sideways. Jared has nowhere to go. The jet ends up in the wall, and then he has to climb back to the top. Really fun battle up front with Jordan Jean and Tyler Raggio and Chad Coase. Raggio ends up prevailing, wins the LCQ. Coase gets through. Jordan Jean and ends up making the main event. I was surprised to see this, man. Props to Jordan Jean, and also shouts out to Reese Podorf and Ian Wolfe making main events. Ian's impressed us all down at Winter Throwdown, and Ian's made a feature, man. Working in. It's, of course, good to see that Podorf and Wolfe, the triple digits, can now be double digits next year after making the show down there in Daytona. And then the Jet was able to land in the transfer spot. Al-Am Dallas Honda Challenge, that singles dash for cash on Friday night, pretty straightforward. Tom Drain, not going to get left at the line this time, takes off, gets the whole shot, continues that momentum, wins the dash. But I did like the line that Dalton was running during that dash. It looked like he was gaining some ground on Tom, and I thought that was going to be a really useful line for him in the feature. It looked like Dalton definitely had something for him tonight and was looking pretty sporty. But again, Tom Drain gets the whole shot, gets to control the race, and is looking really, really good, trying to keep that momentum through the night, and again, chasing that redemption in the main event. As we move into the singles main event, well, we were wondering if whole shot Tom was going to be back. And if he didn't get a whole shot, how would he be able to finesse through the pack? Well, Tom gets a decent enough start, but Gautier is able to get by him, and he's kind of in a battle with Cody Kopp and Dalton Gautier coming off of turn 4. And then Trent Lowe in turn 2 have another problem. Lowe ends up crashing into the air fence. Red flag comes out. We have a complete restart. Trent almost wiped out on the opening lap and right in front of the whole field. He was able to save it there. Unfortunately, gets pushed wide there in 1 and 2 on the second lap and is not able to keep it up. And once again, Trent Lowe in 1 and 2, just not friends. I'm hoping he doesn't have nightmares about going into 1 and 2 at Daytona. We can just put that behind us, and he can have a better time down there at Sonoya. So just unfortunate how that played out. The Turner team they struggled on night 2. Had speed, had potential. It just didn't come together. Just bad luck for them while they were down there. Trent again, on the ground a couple of times. Renshaw on the ground once. Just not what that team was hoping for coming out of Daytona. So Trent's got to go to the back, and then we get the restart, and Gautier just, the restart really screwed him. He ended up buried a little bit in the pack right there around 5th. But one person who benefited majorly from that restart was Logan Eisenhardt. Logan, top 10s every race that he's had at Daytona, and this time he was up there in the fight for the podium. Tom was able to get out front, and Tom Drain was not going to be challenged. Tom he went out and he proved me wrong. I didn't think he was going to win a short track. I didn't think he was going to top 5 in Daytona. And he shut me up. I'm not going to question Tom's short track prowess anymore. He put on an incredible performance down there. Cody was able to get through past Eisenhardt after a pretty good battle there for second. I thought Cody was going to be able to catch up to Tom, but they really just kind of paced each other. Cody would gain a 10th, Tom would gain a 10th, Cody would gain a 10th, Tom would get it back. Just couldn't quite close the distance throughout the feature. So Tom Drain, Cody Kopp go 1-2, and then we get a fun battle with Justin Jones and Chase Sadoff, and just really just going after each other. And then Dalton ends up in the mix with this as well, and Dalton had to get aggressive. He was buried back there, 5th, 6th, needing to fight through. He saw the guys up front checking out, and he had to get aggressive at a couple of times and made some passes with urgency. And that was really good to see Dalton's aggression out there. And 2 podiums on the weekend for a team that we don't know if they're going to be able to run the full season. Hopefully they were able to raise some eyebrows and get some sponsorships and can make that California run happen. It would be really great to see Dalton be able to compete this full season. He seems like he's in a much better headspace this year. Really fun interview with Robbie Bobby on the Flo broadcast with Kristen Beat. Just kind of talking about their mindset with where they're at in the season. If you get a chance, definitely go back and watch that. Dalton goes 2-3 on the weekend. Cody goes 1-2. Tom 15-1. On the weekend, and then Chase Sadoff ends up bouncing back for another 4th, 4-4 on the weekend for Chase to really stay in that championship. Let's put the results up from night 2. Cycle through that, you see Eisenhardt, strong run again, coming home with his best Daytona finish, continues his streak of top 10s. Best AFT singles finish for Logan there. We mentioned Trent Lowe, tough night. Renshaw, not probably what he would have hoped for out of Daytona as well. And then we look at the points. And leaving Daytona, we got Cody Kopp on top by 7 over Dalton Gautier. Chase Sadoff 14 back. Tom Drain, 4th place, only 16 back. And he left Daytona 27 back last year. Again, we talked in our preview show about how much of a hole Tom was in leaving the early part of these rounds before he was able to really get that win and find momentum. So we'll see what the rest of his season looks like. Justin Jones is going to be racing in Canada some this year, 5th in points there. And Trent Lowe ends the weekend in 6th. Evan Renshaw ends the weekend down in 11th. He's our top rookie at the moment. So that's how the singles shaped up for Daytona. Very exciting weekend down there with those riders. We'll see how things transition over into Sonoya. And of course, we can't leave out the Build Train Race Girls. They put on a great show down there. Night 2 especially, really fun race with Taya Little and Kinsey Luker. Taya picked up the win on Thursday night. And then Friday, International Women's Day. What better day to showcase these ladies' talents and this class's as a whole. Just a wonderful, wonderful program that Royal Enfield has going on with the girls building these bikes, training together, and competing at these events. I believe they're going to be at 7 throughout the year. Yeah, the Friday night main event was fun to watch. You had Taya was able to kind of run into the corners a lot deeper than Kinsey Luker was, but Kinsey able to get off of the corners, get off corner exit a little bit better and pull a gap. They were right on each other's rear wheel all the way until the finish of that one. And Kinsey ended up picking the win on Friday, as we mentioned. Taya, pretty solid ride on Thursday. They split wins on the weekend. So major props to the girls down there with the Build Train Race program and all the stuff that goes into that and making it happen. So definitely cool to have that part of the sport, and look forward to seeing those girls at future events and competing for their championship within American Flat Track as well. So that was a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack. Definitely one of our longer videos. If you minimize this so you didn't have to look at me this whole time, I don't blame you. This probably would have played better as a podcast, but thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for checking this out. I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget, you can watch American Flat Track all season long. You can check them out on Flo for the live stuff. Fox Sports 1, the TV broadcasts, and then they'll have the on-demand stuff on Fans Choice as well. So plenty of options to take in all the action, but there's no better place than being at the racetrack. So if you're close into an area of a national, please support American Flat Track. Please go out and support one of these races and be in attendance. There's nothing like being there and feeling just the power and the excitement of these races when you're there in person. Try to support your local amateur racing on weekends when there's not a national going on, or hey, even if there's a national going on across the country and you got a local race going on, support these local tracks, these promoters. Keep the sport going and keep this dream alive, I guess. We love Flat Track, and thank you all for checking this out. Thanks for bearing with us through this one. Just so much to unpack after Daytona, covering 2 rounds and just a lot of excitement around the season. You know, I was a kid in a candy store when the first night was ready to get underway. We had the broadcast pulled up right at 4 o'clock on the dot, ready to catch all the action. And another cool thing, just real quick to touch on, that Flo Sports Fast Lap Award on the opening night, awarding an extra $5,000 to the rider who got the fastest lap. Goes to Chase Sadoff and Dallas Daniels. So cool element that they threw in there. I know the rest of the year it's only going to be $500, but hey, maybe we can nudge Mark a little bit and see if he can bump it up on a couple other rounds. Good to see their involvement. Good to see him putting a little bit more money into the sport. That is obviously a partnership deal where the rider has to promote Flo in order to get that award. So it is a give and take, but just a couple social media posts, and then you get the bonus there for the fastest lap of the night, whether it's practice qualifying or a main event. So yeah, just another cool note out of Daytona. So yeah, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for checking this out. We're going to try to keep these bad boys going, keep, some preview shows, recap shows. Maybe we can keep it a little shorter when we're only doing 1 round at a time, but the double headers are probably going to be lengthy. Love to hear your thoughts on Daytona, how you feel it went, what you're excited about, who raised some eyebrows, who was a little disappointing. Yeah, let's lock in. It's going to be a great year, everybody. Take care of yourself again. Support Flat Track, support local races, support the nationals, but more importantly, man, let's just support each other. Love you guys.